Well, STIAAN and I are friends first. We have a lot of respect for each other.
I'm definitely a fan of his clothes.
Being around STIAAN is crazy. Always have so much fun with him.
It's very unique.
We chose STIAAN because he's an excellent designer.
Totally blown away by the amount of talent this guy has.
STIAAN's a very awesome person and it really comes through in his clothes.
He's a very interesting person, very analytical.
He's fantastic at what he does.
He's intense.
I'm a huge fan.
I find him quite exciting as a menswear designer.
Looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
I can't really sort of remember the specific moment that I decided to be a designer, and then I think it was sort of towards high school where I realized that I was sort of like quite creatively inclined. I didn't have a lot of friends at school who were even remotely interested in fashion. It's something I kind of discovered on my own, and after school I just pursued it, and it's now many years later. That all kind of led into me wanting to leave Durbanville and kind of come to Cape Town and experiment with being a designer. And the course is very pattern intensive. It was only sort of towards the end, maybe the last year or two, that I kind of understood why I was there. And I only really found my voice about just over 2 years ago.
We met quite a few years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. He offered his services as a pattern maker to me, and from that we kind of developed a friendship. I think for creative people who are especially in the same industry, to work in a space together is quite tricky. STIAAN and I have quite distinct and very different perspectives on what it is that we're doing.
We've collaborated with STIAAN LOUW before on our music video 6 Second Poison, and we really enjoy his stuff. It's nice, it's urban but edgy at the same time. And all in all, yeah, he's fantastic at what he does. Yeah.
I wore some of his clothes in a film project that I worked on recently. As an actor, the wardrobe's always such a vital part of the character. He offers kind of a unique variety of clothing to men, which is exciting, but it's still simple, you know.
I worked with him for about 5 years. We click like very well. He's like the biggest inspiration to me. He's an excellent pattern maker. He can do whatever he wants to with fabric. So he designs from whatever he wants to make and the style that he likes. He's an inspiration. I want to learn from him. A week ago we were sitting having coffee and he was sort of, I can't believe I'm sitting having coffee and I have Design Indaba in a week.
And I wanted to create a collection that was a lot more quiet to a certain extent in terms of what I'd done at Fashion Weeks before and also last year. Like, I wanted to kind of focus more on the fit and the construction of the garments and do a collection that was really simple and really effortless. I wanted to also like move away from the predominantly black color palette that I'd used before, and at the same time I wanted to focus on a sort of slightly more regal look in terms of the collars and the way that things are cut, and keep it very focused. I do try and take people on somewhat of a journey, and sort of I do want them to have a certain amount of escapism during the show. I think with a show like Design Indaba, it's not that easy to get the pool of models to reflect your brand as accurately, you know, as I would like to. I think the biggest stress right now is just to finish the collection and you know, sort of make sure that everything is in place. Well, I think in school definitely the focus was on sport and sort of like being good at like intellectual subjects like mathematics and whatever, and there wasn't a tremendous amount of focus on being creative or developing that. I obviously kind of didn't fit into that whatsoever, and it did spark me off to kind of want to leave and experiment and kind of find people who were sort of like-minded. I always knew I wanted more, and I think from that point of view, having grown up there was a definite push and drive for me to leave and explore and kind of just see what else was available to me. I never kind of set out to do work that was androgynous per se. I kind of just happened to do it at a time and understood that it was very relevant at the time. It's also a term that I'm quite scared of getting too associated with because I don't want my work to be boxed as only that. But when I made the shift from women's wear into menswear, obviously having that experience of women's wear and experimenting with menswear and realizing it could be so much more than what it was, I started incorporating elements from women's wear design into menswear, and at the same time still address the female market. So it worked out quite beautifully, and I think these days girls very often like open their boyfriend's cupboards and like put something on that that their boyfriend own, and I think it kind of it's working both ways now. So I still have a lot of women buying my trousers or buying my t-shirts, and at the same time I think guys are becoming a lot more experimental. They don't only need to wear a certain kind of look to be considered masculine, and I think from that point of view I think the androgyny phase will also kind of like fade out again as we're kind of getting over this bit. Point where you just go into like hyperdrive and you don't really think about anything. You just have this tick sheet that you have to work through, and that's pretty much what the day is like. You don't really have time to stress out or think about anything. At this point, like if everything isn't in place, it kind of just disappears. What I'll have to do now is, it's like the show will be tomorrow at 4, and like my responsibility now is to make sure that the collection is actually prepped and that all the buttons are sewn on. You know, so like anything that needs to be ironed is already ironed. I've been doing shows for 6 years now. I'm sometimes between 1 and 3 shows a year, and you get to the point where you're kind of so used to it that you don't really kind of stress. And like also the production team that I work with have done every single one of those shows, so you do kind of trust in them. They're professional and they know what they're doing. It's very different from Fashion Week where you know, you do one show and that one show has to be perfect.
STIAAN is, I think, one of the most talented South African designers at the moment. What I like with STIAAN is that he's not just going for it, that he's really, really considering every single step he takes.
I think it's a rather interesting new line, especially the fact that it's something very different to what he's done before. I like the classical feel of it, really nice.
It's a little bit nerve-wracking. I'm really honored that he asked me. I love it. It's very well structured but comfortable, and it's awesome.
Well, to be honest with you, the first time I worked with STIAAN was last year at the DESIGN INDABA, and his interpretation of fashion, especially menswear, is completely progressive. I think it's inspirational for people to see that this kind of quality can come out of not just South Africa, but local Cape Town boy that really, really has got what it takes.